Wildlife and boating, something you may not think that goes together all that well, but as a boater, you're definitely going to encounter wildlife in your time out there on the water, and some of those interactions are going to be pretty interesting, just like some of the things we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to the Bahamas, where this was the scene when Exuma Watersports was out on a tour and ran across a giant hammerhead shark. During this encounter, a dog that was on the land apparently didn't like the shark being in his backyard and jumped into the water and actually began to try and chase the shark off. The whole encounter lasts for a little over a minute. As you can see, the dog continues to go after the shark until the shark finally does vacate the area, and the dog does safely make it back to shore. But the dog got lucky in this one, because if that shark would have become agitated enough, or if he was hungry enough, the dog probably would have been a pup-sized snack. Our next story to make the boating news this week will bring us back stateside, and this was the scene just a few days ago when a 32-foot vessel began taking on water just off the coast of Freeport, Texas. There were 6 people on board the vessel at the time of the incident. As soon as they realized their dewatering pumps were not working on the boat, they quickly contacted the Coast Guard, gave them their location, and let them know they were going to have to abandon ship. The Coast Guard quickly launched a 45-foot response boat and a Dolphin helicopter crew to the scene to try and rescue the crew. They were located approximately 5 miles south of the Bravos River near Freeport on a life raft by the time the Coast Guard team arrived. Fortunately, in this situation, due to the Coast Guard's quick response time, there were no injuries reported in this incident, but it does serve as a reminder: if you're heading offshore, always check those bilge pumps before you leave the dock. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down toward the coast of Cuba, where this was the scene this past week when the Coast Guard cutters Tampa and Vigilant crews reparated 311 Haitians back to Haiti this past Monday following an interdiction approximately 30 miles northeast of Cuba. This incident began when a Coast Guard C-130 airplane, while out on routine patrol, spotted a suspicious vessel. It quickly alerted the nearest Coast Guard cutter, and the Coast Guard cutters James, Tampa, Isaac Mayo, and Vigilant all arrived on the scene, and they rescued 311 men, women, and children from an unsafe vessel. The vessel actually wound up sinking just shortly after getting everybody off the boat. Fortunately, in this situation, no injuries were reported, but I can only imagine what would have happened had the Coast Guard not spotted this vessel. We'd be telling a very different story today with 311 people on a boat that was going down. Coast Guard and partner agency crews continue to patrol the Florida Straits, and Coast Guard agency officials claim their crews are doing the best they can to stop people from illegally entering the U.S., and as always discourage people from taking to the seas trying to risk their life to get to the U.S. The numbers that the Coast Guard are facing this year have been staggering, as we talked a little bit about last week. In 2017, the Coast Guard reparated 419 Haitian migrants. In 2022, that number was over 7,000. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to the coast of Morocco, where this was the scene over this past weekend when a freighter ran aground and wound up hitting a breakwater outside of a small coastal town. According to reports, the riverine freighter Lavagna ran aground on the outer breakwater this past Saturday. According to local authorities, the vessel's engine failed, and in rough weather she drifted into the jetty made of concrete jacks. First responders quickly jumped into action. They mobilized fire engines, a boom crane, and even a military helicopter to attempt to bring the crew from the vessel safely to shore. Currently, efforts are underway to try and prevent any pollution from the vessel's bunker tankers from affecting the local waters. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram and let me know, and you might see your stories over here. And if you haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.